never forget their son saying, I'm interested because now I get to know where you keep the yacht and the private jet, because we do like $15 million a year. So you have to be holding out on me. And he grew up in the trades and he knew how to work with his hands and he was amazing at what he did. But that was the mindset that his kid had, was that dad was stockpiling a whole bunch of money that the kid didn't know about, because $15 million a year in revenue, dad and mom must be multi-millionaires.
Yeah, that's the unfortunate part about the construction industry. We have the lowest profit margins. We average basically 3 to 5% net income. And what we work on is increasing those incomes to 10%. That's our goal with every client. And to your point, where's the yacht or where's the money bags? It's just not there if you're not paying attention or know what your financials are at.
You're listening to Titans of the Trades. I'm your host, Ryan Englin, author of Hire Better People Faster and creator of the CoreFit Hiring System, a proven process to help growing companies attract and retain only the best. I'm on a mission to revolutionize the perception of the trades and elevate it to new heights. After growing up in a blue-collar family, my passion for making the trades cool again runs deep. If you're a titan in the industry and want to be on my show, stick around until the end and I'll reveal how you can be my next guest.
My name is Ryan Englin. I am the host of Titans of the Trades. Thank you for joining me for another episode. In today's show, we're going to meet with Aaron Mills, the founder and CEO of DAAXIT, a company that provides fractional CFO services exclusively to contractors. Now, if you've followed me for any time, you know I often have financial guests on the show, and I do my best to keep them from getting into the weeds about finances and everything else. I want them to give you tips and tactics and things that you can take away from the show. And Aaron did not disappoint. So his company is one of Inc. 5000's fastest growing. The guy knows what he's doing. He's been doing this for a long time. In fact, he's going to tell you a story about a company that he helped take to an exit that was phenomenal for him in his career. So get ready to take some notes on a welcome to today's show, Aaron Mills. Aaron, welcome to the show.
Hi, Ryan. Thanks for inviting me.
Well, before we get started, I want you to share with our listeners a little bit about DAAXIT, the company that you started. Tell us what inspired you to do that. And you have to share where you got the name from too. Even though I already know, I want our listeners to know where the name came from.
Sure. My background is in the construction industry for over 20 years. My last W-2 job was a CFO for electrical contractor. We scaled it from 30 million to 90 million and sold it for a 12 times multiple. And after that, I took a year off, tried to figure out what would be my next move. And during that year, I figured out that the construction industry is lacking financial and accounting expertise that are guiding these business owners. So these business owners, they are concerned about getting the work, getting the job, doing the job. And then the last thing that they worry about is, did they make money?
Yeah. No, I hear what you're saying. And you know what? I think a lot of it is, a lot of the contractors we work with, they grew up in the trades. Like they grew up turning the wrench or swinging the hammer, operating the equipment. And that's what they know. And that's what they love and they're passionate about. And they found a way to call their buddies and say, hey, let's go do this together and make some money. And then they just didn't really think much more beyond that, right? They're just building cool stuff. They're doing what they love. And then we throw in this thing like the finances, right? And the making a profit and actually paying bills at the end of it. So what have you found, like working with these contractors? Like, it sounds like you have a passion for them. What have you found that they're really missing? Like, what are some of the missing pieces for them and why they don't do this?
Yes. So one, to open up about financials is something that's very hard for individuals to do, anybody. And, a construction business owner that has a multi-million-dollar company, sometimes they're afraid to show, what is actually going on from a financial standpoint. And they lose sleep over this. And this is so common because so many construction business owners have a bookkeeper or an office manager that's running the finances, that doesn't have a clue about finances.
It's like a family friend or a cousin or somebody's like, I can help with that. And they do it. You know, one of the things that I learned real early on when I started working with construction companies, I'll never forget, I had this contractor. He was a second generation and his kids were starting to get into the business. So it was going to be third generation. And I'll never forget the day that he went to his kid and he said, hey, you know, I want to start thinking about this idea of selling you the business. And the kids were blown away that dad was going to have to sell the business to them. And I'll never forget their son saying, I'm interested because now I get to know where you keep the yacht and the private jet, because we do like $15 million a year. So you have to be holding out on me. And he grew up in the trades and he knew how to work with his hands and he was amazing at what he did. But that was the mindset that his kid had, was that dad was stockpiling a whole bunch of money that the kid didn't know about because, you know, $15 million a year in revenue, dad and mom must be multi-millionaires.
Right.
And that was the belief that they had.
Yeah. So that's the unfortunate part about the construction industry. We have the lowest profit margins. We average basically 3 to 5% net income. And what we work on is increasing those incomes to 10%. That's our goal with every client. And to your point, like, where's the yacht or where's the money bags? It's just not there if you're not paying attention or know what your financials are at.
Mm. So you have a unique framework to help contractors with this. Is that right?
Yes.
Tell me a little bit about that framework and how does it address this challenge that you're seeing with these contractors?
Yes. So we have an onboarding that we've identified, and I'll just go over, I'm not going to bore you with all the details, but one of the biggest outcomes is the work in progress, the WIP schedule.
Sorry, I have a lot of clients that complain about the WIP. So go ahead.
Yeah. So again, these business owners, they don't have a finance degree or accounting degree. And I'll tell you that I had a controller that doesn't understand a WIP schedule. So, you know, it's not fair for these business owners to understand a WIP schedule. But if you have somebody that does understand a WIP schedule, they'll learn where you're making your profits and where you're losing your money.
Mm. So what do you do to help them with this? How does that work?
Well, it's really about educating and showing them the data. So once the financial data is accurate, that's another big problem, is usually you have somebody that doesn't know what they're doing and the financial data is inaccurate. So the business owner doesn't trust the data. But once you have accurate financial data, then you could present it to the business owner and the business owner can make better decisions. So if I'm doing this project and I'm making, let's just say, low profit margin, let's say we're still making money on it. Well, why do that project when you could do this other project when you can make 10 times more?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, it's interesting. As soon as you said, well, it's just education, I was like, usually their financials are sort of a mess. And so that's something else that you help them with over at DAAXIT is just putting them through this rigorous framework to help educate them and help understand where the money's going and where the profitability lies, but also being able to help them get good financials. Because isn't it tough to make good decisions if you don't have good financials?
Right. And to your point, there are so many business owners that it's March right now, just letting you know. Mm-hmm. But there are so many business owners right now in March that don't know how they did in last year's financials because they don't have their taxes done.
Yeah.
So they're waiting on their taxes. Where DAAXIT, we will review their financials monthly and have a meeting with the business owner monthly and actually tell them what's going on with their business.
Yeah. You know, it reminds me of when I first started my financial journey. I remember the first CPA I ever had. I was like, hey, aren't my taxes due April 15th or whatever? He's like, no, I filed an extension for you. Don't worry about it. And I was taught at a very, low maturity level of being an entrepreneur that there's this extension that you can do. That means you don't have to file your taxes till like October or something. And that my first CPA, I'll never forget, like that was just like clockwork. That's what he did. He just filed extensions for all of his entrepreneurs and taught me They didn't have to worry about it until October. And that was a hard lesson to unlearn for me personally. And I do know some contractors that are in that cycle of, we have time. Don't worry about it. We'll clean it up later. But I love that you guys are meeting with them monthly to go over this and getting them accurate financials on a monthly basis, which I believe every contractor should be doing. I can't tell you how many times someone's come to me and is like, hey, I need to hire a new crew for this job we just won. Like, great, when are we doing that? Like, once we figure out how to get paid on this new job, then we'll have the money to hire this crew. And I'm like, what are you going to do in the meantime? And I get an answer something along the lines of, well, we're going to burn down our existing people the overtime and putting them on the other job until we have enough income coming in, because they don't really know where they're at financially.
Right. And that's, financial forecasting. I mean, again, these business owners did not go to school for this.
Yeah. And it's a tough part of the business. Like, there's a lot of moving parts, a lot of super detail-y stuff. And it's not something I can build and see, which is where I think a lot of contractors come from.
Yeah.
So what are some of the other ways that you and your team help them, besides the education, getting their books clean? Like, that sounds part of it, but then what happens next?
Yeah. So a lot of it is, growth and development. So I always say that the business growth is dependent on the business owner's lid. So if the business owner does not grow, the business won't grow. So part of our core value is education. So with our CFOs, they have over 20 years experience in the construction industry. They know and get what the next step is. So, a business owner could be looking at, adding a service department or adding a different arm to their business, or, how do I grow a business? Well, maybe you need to hire a project manager. I can give an example where we had a construction company, he was working 90 hours a week. And what we found out is he could promote a superintendent to take over 50% of the operations of the business. And the really neat thing about this story was 6 months later, the business owner told me that he was able to take a 2-week vacation with his family without answering the phone. He's been able to go to his children's events, sporting events, and he's having the best relationship with his wife.
Wow. You can't put a price on any of those things.
No.
Just by making one decision to promote somebody to take on a different part of the business. That's great. Well, you're doing some of these things too, I imagine, in your business, because I noticed that you've won Inc.'s 5,000's fastest growing companies over at DAAXIT. Is that right?
Yes.
So clearly you understand this strategy of consistent growth, getting recognition in the marketplace, helping companies. If you're doing it internally, I imagine you're helping your clients start thinking differently about growth. Case in point, promote this person, take over 50% of your operations, live your best life ever, right? Like, that's really what's happening. What are some of the things that you've done or that you coach clients to do to help them achieve this kind of consistent growth?
Well, I'm going to tell you, maybe this isn't something I didn't teach them, but, once we get them knowing how to make more money, it's really neat how they share. So these business owners will give their employees raises, they'll give their employees bonuses, and, really that's where, the employees are they are the most important thing of the business. And that's probably one of the coolest things that I get to see, is that not only the business owner can sleep at night, they share the profits.
Which I imagine word gets out, makes it easy to hire key people. Key people are happier. They bring in new contracts. Like, it's just kind of like this cyclical thing when you're able to reinvest. That's great. So you've mentioned a lot of things, growing the business. You've mentioned stuff around the right people in the business, moving people around. You just mentioned making more money. tell me and our listeners, what is it that a fractional CFO does? Because it sounds like you got your fingers in all of the cookie jars that are in a business. Talk to us about that for a second.
Right. Well, when I was a CFO, I was the business's owner's right-hand strategic partner. So a business owner can be like, hey, I want to do this. I want to, like you said, I want to hire another crew. I want to grow my revenue 20%. Well, how are you going to do that? And a CFO can put that strategic plan in place.
How do you do that?
You get into the weeds, but, you evaluate.
Let's not go too into the weeds, but just give us like an overview. Like, how do you do that?
Well, one, you increase profits so that you can afford it. That makes things easier. And then you plan for it, right? You don't just say, hey, what does it look like if I have to add 20 people? You have to plan for that. So then, you have to forecast revenue. You have to forecast your overhead. And then you got to start figuring out job descriptions. There's a lot of pieces to just growing a business. And that's where DAAXIT has these expertise that's been there and done it. So I kind of want to give a generic answer, but every situation's different. So you can't really explain, in any detail, one specific example.
Well, I'm sorry you said that because I'm going to ask you for an example now, because you've mentioned a couple of times make more money, become more profitable. And you said understanding the whip and educating. Can you give our listeners maybe one or two practical things that they could either go talk to their finance people about or that they could implement in their business where they would actually go, whoa, this Aaron guy knows what he's talking about. Like it moved the needle a little bit. Like what are some of the things that they're missing or what is something that they should be doing that they're not?
So one of the biggest things that is get a whip schedule and then make sure that whip schedule ties to the general ledger. And then do a comparison of what you bid, your revenue and gross profit to your actual financials. So if you say that I bid 30% gross profit, but if you look at your financials and they say that you're at 20% gross profit, that means that you've got a 10% error. And if you figure out that 10% error, that means you could add 10% to your bottom line.
Wow. Do you ever see people where they do this, they do the whip and then they bid 30% and they're at 30%? Or is that just kind of like imaginary world?
It's imaginary world because again, I had a controller who had a finance accounting degree that didn't understand a whip schedule. There's a very few people that understand a whip schedule.
Okay.
And can apply it to your operations.
Yeah. Got it. I just thought I'd ask because it sounds like it's super easy. And I imagine there's some people like, no, we're good. But if that's something that's very rarely seen as an accurate, whip that matches what you bid, then, I think that's a great place to start. It reminded me of a story. One of our clients we worked with a few years ago, they were talking about how it had been real rough financially and how they just needed to hire more and more people. And I finally had a conversation with the owner and his overtime that he had on his books was insane. And it was over $1 million. And I'm asking him so we need more people because overtime is costing you time and a half. And he's like, no, it's accelerated schedules. I go, who's accelerating the schedules? He goes, the contractors, the GCs are. And I said, well, then why the heck are you paying for this? I'm just asking dumb questions, right?
Right.
If they're accelerating the schedule, making you make your guys work more, they're not going to give you the work consistently. So you can't go hire new people because you have to let them go. Why aren't they paying for the overtime? And he called me 3 months later and he goes, I didn't think they'd do it, but all but one of them said they'd start picking up the overtime. I'm like, you just made $1 million.
Right.
Because that just drops right to the bottom line, just like what you were saying.
Yeah.
And I think sometimes it's that second set of eyes is just so critical. And someone that understands the business can have those kinds of conversations. So if someone's thinking about this, they've got a bookkeeper, maybe they've got a controller, maybe they've got someone who says, no, I've got the finances under control. What are some red flags or things that could come up in their world where they'd go, you know what? I think I need to call this Aaron guy.
Yeah. So what I would look at is I would look at your monthly net income. So if there is, I call it a roller coaster. So if there's a roller coaster on your net income, that means your financials are most likely inaccurate. So, I've seen so many times where a construction company, hey, November, we had the most record profit. This is a great month. And then December, we lost a whole bunch of money. I'm like, no, that's not what really happened. Yes, that's what your financials said because they're inaccurate, but it's those roller coasters of net income on the bottom line is the key indicator.
Aaron, it's because there was a 4-week payroll in November and a 5-week in December. That's what happened, right?
Yeah. And I didn't invoice this month, but I invoiced the other month.
Exactly.
Right?
Yeah. Like they always have a reason why it shows that, right? Is where I was going. Like there's always an excuse or a justification for why it does that. But it sounds like it doesn't have to be that way.
No. So that's the other thing is a lot of people run their business on cash basis versus accrual basis. And to manage and run a company, you need to be on accrual basis. And there's a big difference.
Yeah, which is not a topic for this show because I had someone explain it to me one time and I was like, I'm good. But I think you're right, though. I don't know if you ever heard of Mike Michalowicz, but he talked profit first. And he's like, you just need to run your business with an envelope system. Like he just made it so simple because how do business owners know if they have money? They log into Bank of America. There's cash in the account. They're like, we made money this month. And so many companies just run that way, but sounds like there's such a better way to do it. So Aaron, talk to us a little bit about how can people get to know you but more, learn more about you, what you're up to. I know you've got a health check you do. I know you've got a webinar that's coming out. I know you've got a lot of resources to do. One of the things you talked about a lot, which was educate, because it sounds like that's what we need in this space is more education around the finances, WIP schedules, teaching our people how to do it. How do people get to know you and how can they learn more?
Yeah, I would locate me on LinkedIn. That would be the best way. Just this weekend, we're having a mastermind where 12 construction business owners are going to get together. And we're going to be spending 2 days with them, just strategically planning. And, that's just one area that we're trying to help educate these business owners. You mentioned a webinar on LinkedIn. We're going to be promoting webinars, how to build and scale your construction company. And in this, you will be able to learn how to work less and make more money.
Now that sounds like fairy tale, but it sounds like you've been able to do it before, so you could definitely do it again. That is great. So follow you on LinkedIn. You're going to have lots of educational content. It sounds like you're running masterminds now as well. And then tell us how to get to the website.
Yes, it's www.DAAXIT, DAAXIT.com.
All right. This has been great. Like I like your almost no nonsense approach. Do these 3 things and you will find more money in your business. And I don't think at any time you ever said they were really easy things to do, but they're simple. Like there's only 3 of them. So I thought that was great. Thank you so much for being on the show, Aaron. I've really enjoyed it.
Yeah. Thank you, Ryan.
Ryan Englin here. Thank you so much for listening to Titans of the Trades. If you're a titan in the construction, manufacturing, or skilled trades industry and would like to be a guest on my show, please visit podcast.corematters.com. If you found value in this interview, would you share this episode on social media? Just do a quick screenshot on your phone and share it with a friend or post it on social. And if you know someone that would be a great guest, tag them on social media to let them know about the show and include the hashtag Titans of the Trades. I love seeing your posts and guest suggestions. We are regularly putting out new episodes and content. To make sure you don't miss any episodes, click the subscribe button. Your thumbs up, ratings, and reviews go a long way to help promote the show and get me one step closer to solving the labor crisis facing the industry. Want to know more about how we're doing that? Go to our website or follow me on LinkedIn. Thanks for listening.